Hello, everyone. As it's becoming increasingly and abundantly clear that U.S. aid to Ukraine may be not coming at all or significantly delayed, thank you, Republicans. Putin thanks you. Ukraine's President Zelensky is seeking aid elsewhere. He had contacted French Prime Minister Emmanuel Macron during Zelensky's trip to Argentina and basically talked about all of the same things. Thanked France for the aid. And France has been really great, not just in providing weapons and money, but also in helping train Ukrainian soldiers in various tactics, survival, covert warfare, etc. So that has been tremendously helpful. But as Zelensky also pointed out, all the while during the course of this war, Ukraine has been working on the long list of requirements for joining EU. So Ukraine has put in measures to counter corruption. They have not all been successful, but we've been working on it. Ukraine has been doing some reforms in terms of the economic sector, etc., etc. So, like I said, it's a very long list, and Ukraine did its absolute best while fighting a war to fulfill all of those requirements. So now Zelensky's pointing out, come on, guys, we are stuck over here. We need to reopen the conversation about Ukraine joining EU. And I would add to that, we need to reopen conversation about Ukraine joining NATO. And yes, I know there are those who argue that those memberships can only happen if the war ends, once the war ends. But I would like to point out that if we wait with those memberships, there may be no Ukraine in the end. The situation is very obvious. Ukraine needs foreign aid to win this war, to end this war. So I don't know why we're having to have the same conversation over and over. This should be clear. In case anybody had any doubts, here is our favorite ever Foreign Minister Lavrov, basically reiterating Russia's intentions. Once again, they're blaming the West for the war. And I've explained the situation many times already that this has nothing to do with NATO or EU or anything. This has everything to do with Russia being upset about losing its influence over Ukraine and Ukrainian people. They're explicitly saying that they're fighting NATO, they're fighting EU, they're fighting the United States, blah, 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 blah. So there is no doubt, there should be no doubt in anybody's mind about Russia's purposes in this war. It's not just Ukraine. It will never stop with Ukraine if Russia is allowed to win. And here's another piece. Again, case in point. So this is an article from CNN, and I'm going to try and find more information on this subject. But it talks about Russian hackers targeting NATO, US, and European government networks. Big question to those who think this is just a territorial conflict that impacts Ukraine. Why would they do that? If they were only interested in Ukraine, why would they work in hacking other countries? Why would they do that? Because they're not just interested in Ukraine. They're interested in destabilizing the world. They're interested in wresting influence away from NATO, away from the EU, away from the US. And basically, as a friend of mine said, They don't live like human beings themselves, and they don't want the rest of the world to live like human beings. One of the things that we've read in some of the Russian sources yesterday, did you know that in some Russian towns they have a running police report on how many children drowned in the old-fashioned wooden toilets? Yeah, that's a thing in Russia. Did you know that there are places in Russia where they had fecal stalagmites? Yeah, look it up. Russia, fecal stalagmites. If you don't believe me, look it up. This is what they do. This is how they live. They live in shit, and they want the rest of the world to live in shit with them. Wake up, everybody.